We're finally back with another UFC event after the 2-week break. In a couple days, we have UFC 224 in Brazil. This card's getting a lot of hate, and I really don't think a lot of people are going to buy the pay-per-view, and that's mostly because of the main event. As a champion, Amanda Nunes has virtually no star power as it is. On top of the fact that she was supposed to fight Chris Cyborg next, I know a lot of people were expecting that to be the fight. So the Pennington fight kind of came out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. I know it doesn't really pique that many fans' interest, and there's nothing wrong with the fight, though. I think Pennington is probably the only contender in bantamweight that deserves a title shot right now. But I'll talk about that later. So without any further ado, let's get right into these UFC 224 predictions. For the first fight on the main card, we have two Brazilian stars and veterans, Vitor Belfort and Lyoto Machida, going at it. Vitor's been talking about retirement for the past couple of years, so this could possibly be his last fight, especially if he loses. Personally, I think that both of these guys should retire after this fight because their best days are definitely behind them. But anyways, in terms of this matchup, I think it could play out a lot like the Eryk Anders versus Lyoto Machida fight. Obviously, Lyoto doesn't want to get hit because, honestly, with both of these guys, if they get hit one time clean, it could all be over. So I do think Vitor is going to be the more aggressive guy. He's going to be looking to get in close and land a big shot. But I think that Lyoto is going to be able to do the same thing he did to Eryk Anders, where he stays in his karate stance, sort of dances around his opponent, lands the occasional shot, has really, really good defense and head movement to avoid getting knocked out, and eventually wins a decision. If he could do that for 5 rounds against Eryk Anders, which I personally didn't think he could do, he can definitely do it against Vitor. He might even be able to knock out Vitor if he hits him with a nice counter shot, but I do think the most likely outcome of this fight is Lyoto by decision. If you thought the Eryk Anders fight was boring, then I'm sorry, but you're possibly in for another boring fight, but I do think Lyoto is going to get the victory here. Next up, we have number 6 ranked bantamweight John Lineker versus Brian Kelleher. Brian is coming off of a win over Renan Barão, although a win over Renan definitely doesn't mean the same thing as it used to. And John Lineker is coming off of a dominant decision victory over Marlon Vera. I think that John is a guy that doesn't get as much credit as he should. He's 30-8, but most of his losses actually came before he was even in the UFC, and he's only lost once in the last 4 years. So Brian Kelleher, I don't think he's going to win this fight. I think this was a little too far of a jump. Brian was on a little bit of a streak, but fighting John Lineker I don't think was a smart idea, especially in Brazil, because if this does go to a decision and if it is close, the judges are most likely going to lean towards John Lineker. I mean, that's just a proven fact. But I don't think that John Lineker is going to need biased judging to win the fight. I think he's going to dominate in the striking. He might even hurt Brian Kelleher a couple times. Brian's pretty durable, and he's never been knocked out, so that's the only reason I'm leaning towards him surviving. But I think John's going to be able to win in the striking exchanges and then stuff all of Brian's takedowns. And what we're going to see here is a dominant decision victory by John Lineker. Next up on the main card, we have Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. Obviously, this is a fight that the matchmakers are trying to easily give Mackenzie to win. Amanda Cooper has all 3 of her losses coming by submission, and Mackenzie Dern is a legendary jiu-jitsu practitioner, so what they want to happen is Mackenzie to get a submission victory to add to her highlight reel so they can continue their promotional push and feel justified. And I feel like most people are probably going to say Mackenzie Dern can beat Amanda Cooper because, let's be honest here, Amanda isn't exactly the best female strawweight. I kind of feel like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel with people they can give to Mackenzie at this point. But honestly, I do think Amanda Cooper has a good chance of beating Mackenzie Dern, and let me explain why. The 3 girls that submitted Amanda Cooper are Cynthia Calvillo, Aspen Ladd, and Tatiana Suarez. I think all 3 of them would absolutely destroy Mackenzie Dern in a fight. Also, in her last fight, Mackenzie Dern showed a huge deficiency in her striking against Ashley Yoder. The striking was absolutely horrible, and she got lit up by Ashley. I think she even got dropped once. So if Amanda can keep the fight on the feet, I think she wins easily. My only concern is Mackenzie taking it to the ground because then we could have a problem. But Mackenzie had a hard time taking down Ashley Yoder, who I'm pretty sure had 0% takedown defense in the UFC up to that point. So if Amanda Cooper can keep it on the feet, and box up Mackenzie Dern. I think she could win a decision. This is kind of where I'm getting concerned about the bias judging in Brazil. I think we could see a robbery here, but based on my previous reasoning, I think that Amanda Cooper is going to be able to stuff Mackenzie Dern's takedown attempts, keep it on the feet, box up Mackenzie, and win a decision. For the co-main event, we have Jacare Souza versus Kelvin Gastelum. I think that even though both of these guys are only on a one-fight winning streak each, this is probably a title eliminator, and that might be mostly because there's not that many contenders at middleweight right now. But anyway, I think this is Jacare's fight to win. I think that Kelvin is definitely one of the best middleweights right now, and he deserves to be number 5 in the rankings, but I do not think he beats Jacare. The only advantages I can think of that Kelvin might have over Jacare are maybe his power, but even though Jacare is known as a submission specialist, he's definitely no slouch on the feet, as you could see in his last fight with Derek Brunson. So I don't necessarily know if there's going to be that much of a visible advantage on the feet. I think that it could be back and forth, and Souza might actually win some exchanges. Even though Kelvin has extremely good wrestling, Jacare is a guy that you do not want to go to the ground with in any circumstance. I mean, he's probably one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in MMA right now. I think the first round is going to be competitive, but Kelvin has also shown some gas tank issues, so I think if this goes to the second and third round, it's pretty much going to be Jacare's for the taking. So the way I see this one going is, like I said, the first round going back and forth, and then the second, Jacare starts to take more of a dominant position off of either Kelvin shooting for a takedown or him shooting for his own takedown and getting it, and eventually getting a submission. So I see Jacare winning by submission in round 2 or 3. And now for the main event, we have the reason that this pay-per-view is probably going to do record low numbers. We have Amanda Nunes versus Rocky Pennington. Amanda Nunes is undoubtedly a great fighter, but she has almost no star power whatsoever, and most people, especially people outside of Brazil, think she's extremely unlikable and unrelatable. And when you add that with the fact that Raquel Pennington hasn't fought in almost 2 years, and a lot of people expected Amanda to actually fight Cyborg next in a champ versus champ fight, I think there actually could have been a lot of hype behind that. But instead, she's fighting Raquel Pennington, who, like I said, hasn't fought in 2 years, and a lot of people probably have forgotten who she was or don't know who she is at this point. And I have to admit that Pennington getting a title shot is a little bit bizarre. I really was expecting the Nunes versus Cyborg fight, but I understand that women's bantamweight is probably the worst off that it's ever been. Last time I checked, I'm pretty sure there's only 17 or 18 active fighters, which is absolutely horrible for a division. And out of every girl, Pennington does deserve the title shot based on her record. She's won her last 4, but she hasn't fought in 2 years, and she's coming back after 2 years and getting a title shot. It's a little unheard of, and I don't really think she has a chance to win, so I think the fight was a little bit pointless unless they're trying to build up Amanda Nunes as a dominant champion, which I don't necessarily think she's that much better than Shevchenko or Holly Holm. Personally, with this one, I think we're going to see a repeat of Amanda's last fight with Valentina. I think it's going to be a drawn-out, long fight with little to no exchanges. But I do think Amanda's going to get the decision for sure. I don't see a finish, and I just see the fight staying on the feet and Amanda Nunes winning in the striking and eventually getting a decision after 5 rounds. Hopefully it's not a really boring fight. I mean, if it's fight of the night, I'll be happy. I'll say, thank God I bought this pay-per-view. Thank God I saw this fight. But, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be relatively boring, but I do see Amanda Nunes getting the victory.